My wife Brittany and I, we started at a young age building a business, buying rent houses. Bought a lot of stuff from my family, my dad, had it going on. 2008 come along, and as you know, it wiped us out. Wiped my family out, wiped us out, so I had to start over in about 2010 with nothing except one little house that we had and a car and a kid at that time. So in that moment, kind of being on the top of the world, you think, at 24 or 5, and then losing everything that you work for is very tough.
I came from a bit of brokenness. My mom and my dad were never married, and from that place, I would say that from really early on, that made me want to grow up and get married to one person and stay married to that person for my whole life. I got to see that modeled in my grandparents' marriage and the home that I was raised in. When my papa passed away, my grandparents had been married for just over 60 years. So they had this faith-filled marriage. Fast forward, grew up, got married, but it was just a little over 12 years of marriage that I found myself divorced, and had to come to terms with the fact that that dream was over and it was no more. In that first marriage to my husband, we'd been a part of a church and a faith community, and we'd served in ministry together. And so on the other side of divorce and trying to stay connected to a church body and continue in church, it made it really difficult. It was not because of the church body or anything that was done to me. It just was shame-filled, because that's just a tactic that the enemy uses that can be so effective, and it was with me.
I kind of was raised in chaos and came from a family of addiction. I can remember just constantly having to watch my surroundings. At 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, I had headaches that probably caused from the stress of being in the chaos. And I remember my grandmother she wasn't trying to, I don't think she was trying to harm me, but I can remember her giving me hydrocodones, and I remember liking the feeling that it gave me.
And in that moment, we really felt God in it. He was just kind of telling us, hey, this kind of stuff don't really matter. Just draw close to me, and I'll see you through it.
So I pulled back away from a community of faith and away from any sort of church body. You can't stay close to God and be at a distance from the body of Christ. But fast forward to when Pastor Matt and Emily, they came to pastor Lakeview, and that was an open door, in church services that are so spirit-filled and full of life and His presence, that He began to draw me back into Himself and nudge me towards giving Him back control.
It was not really a moment, it was just time. It was just consistency. My wife and I consistently worked. If I wasn't working, she was working. We were working together. And there was a moment that I was actually praying, driving down the road, and the Lord led me into a parking lot, which is now our business that we've had for 10 years. So now Jesus working not only in my life, but my wife's life, my kids' life. Going to church, our kids are coming home from church, singing at the top of their lungs, songs, praying. My 9-year-old daughter is praying for people, praying for me and my family. Nice. My son thinks he's King David constantly. I mean, he's just a warrior for God since birth.
Judge Ohm got a hold of me, and he gave me the 4th or 5th chance, and I finally, got clean. He sent me to Shalom to work off community service. I'm rearranging the cans, and Miss Lane comes and she's like, "Do you like to cook?" And I was like, "Yeah, I love to cook." And so I didn't know how to cook, but I needed a job really bad. So I went to work at Shalom 8 years ago, and she told me in that moment, she was like, "God's got more for you." And at that time I didn't believe her, but I started counseling the women and discipling them from that kitchen.
There's a verse in the Old Testament that says God hates divorce. And I can tell you why. Because I've lived it firsthand. There's very few things in this life that are more destructive and more damaging and leave a bloodier wake of trauma behind than divorce. I call it the living death. The Lord even brought me several years ago to Hot Springs to serve in a ministry that is all about redeeming families. But in the middle of seeing redemption in a lot of other families, that's right in the middle of the season where I saw my own family just disintegrate right out from underneath me. And for me, that was the bottom. That was the bottom when I heard the enemy's voice telling me that I can do all the redeeming of other families I want, but there's nothing I can do to redeem my own. It was the faith community that kept me afloat in those days. One of those friends was our pastor. He just put his arms around me and said, I want to walk with you through this.
Was working on a very large project, a couple pieces of property in town, and business deal going on. Not a lot of people knew about it. My wife and I, my pastor, we had talked about it quite a bit. And I had already kind of wrote the deal off. I didn't think it would be going through. Miss Doris at church just felt led by the Lord to grab me by the hands, and she said, son, the Lord is going to give you something that you've always wanted, and it's going to be a miracle. And she patted me and smiled, and I thought, what in the world is this lady talking about? So the following Monday, the owner of the car washes calls me and takes my offer. And the rest is history. So that's been about 8 months ago.
I'm in there cooking. I'm loving what I'm doing. They came to me many times in there and asked me if I wanted to train to be a counselor, and I told them no. I didn't want to do that. I loved my job. I didn't have any intentions of going anywhere else. 3 years ago, they came to me and asked me, if I wanted to be the director, and I said sure. At some point that made sense to me. In that moment, that made sense. Now I'm the director of Shalom Recovery Centers, and I spend my days discipling women. And really, I was thinking, it's my heart to see revival in our city. I can't believe I'm doing what I'm doing today. I cannot believe that God chose me, Casey Cottrell, to do what I'm doing today. I can't believe it. God's good to me. He's better to me than what I deserve by far.
Pastor Matt and I were having lunch one day, and he was just encouraging me and prayed with me. And he told me, he said, I think it's time, I think the Lord is ready to do something new in your life. And there was something about maybe the look in his eye or the way he said it. Instantly I knew exactly what he was saying. He had somebody he wanted me to meet. One of the first things that I ever saw, one of the first times I saw Lindsay, he had called a prayer meeting. Pastor Matt had called a prayer meeting at the church on a Saturday morning. And I went to church that morning and was spending time just seeking the Lord. And when I looked up and saw Lindsay going after the Lord, made the connection of who it was that Matt wanted me to meet. And just her heart for Jesus just caused something to wake up inside me. To watch her worship, I was watching her pray with other people, minister to them, and I knew this was somebody that I had to get to know a little better.
I had given God permission to just have everything and take back control in my life and give up things. And it was shortly after that Emily and Pastor Matt said that they felt like the Lord was having them to introduce me to somebody, and that person was Lance. And it became really clear, really fast, that he was going to be somebody really significant in my life. And then even shortly after that, he revealed to both of us that, we were supposed to get married, and Lance is God's gift in my life. He is exceedingly abundantly more than I can ask, think, or imagine that I ever would have had in a husband. God is good. He always does more than we can even think possible.
Such a beautiful thing, the way that when your life is broken in shambles, if you'll give God all the pieces and don't keep any of them for yourself.
Yeah.
When you're committed to redemption, when you're committed to His work and His way, He can take those pieces and weave them together so beautifully that when it's all said and done, you can flip it over and you can't even find the seam. It's so perfect. It's like it was just always meant to be.
I didn't like being broke. I didn't like the people around me being broke, so once you get going, you got to carry the people around you also and help them up. And Jesus does that also. If you're broken, you just got to give it to Jesus. Give Him everything. Don't hold anything back. Just give it to Him. He'll get you up. Like I said, if you can look up, you can get up.
I honor my parents. And I always said I wouldn't do to my kids, what I was raised in, but I did to my kids what was done to me. And I recently, I heard my son's testimony, and I learned that he had done something, he'd fought. So I knew the generational cycle had to end. I knew it had to end. And I knew it had to end with me. And there's no formula to this. It's just about posturing your heart with God every single day. It's about getting up and being intentional.
Now, we've had people that have asked us that. Was this always meant to be? And I think both of us would say, no, it's never God's plan for divorce. That's never God's plan. He always has grace to redeem and restore. But when you're fully committed to redemption, when you're fully committed to God redeeming lives and redeeming your life, sometimes this is the path that He takes you on.
Yeah.
And He did that for us. Sometimes it's in the place of our deepest brokenness that the Lord births our most effective ministry.
Yeah.
And for Lindsay and I, God has enabled both of us to come alongside each other and to serve in a ministry that is all about redeeming families together. And where I thought the dream was over, it was actually just beginning. And the opportunities and the influence and the platform and the voice that the Lord has given us, He put it in our hearts very early in our marriage that this was something special and that He would use us together to redeem other families. And that's what we've seen God do.
Hi, I'm Jesse Gibson.
Hi, I'm Lance.
And I'm Lindsay.
Hi, I'm Casey.
I'm here to tell you,
And I'm here to tell you
And we're here to tell you
how Jesus can take you from the
bottom
to the top.